Well, back with part two of chapter one, getting into chapter two here, but you know, getting into Native American contributions to civilization, very important here, and I'll go over some of those that I think are important. First of all, not only diversity was a key idea of the fact that Native American tribes were diverse and had a lot of different aspects to them, but it's important to highlight great civilizations here like the Mexica Empire, just to give an example of contributions to world civilization too. And you can see this area by the 1490s, by the time of contact with Europeans, they ruled an empire that was larger than Spain and Portugal combined. All of this was basically part of the Mexica Empire, and you can tell in this picture here that it's a very organized society, kind of similar to what some of the old empires like the Egyptians and the Babylonians had in the ancient Near East. They used constant warfare to protect the empire's borders. They were very astute at using tribute from subjugated tribes in order to keep their empire big. And the only way to keep your empire big and controlled is to do things like that, to basically try to control everybody as I guess as much as possible, and that's what the Mexica did. And also just in the way their government structures were, the idea that they had specialization, which basically means that everybody has a different job to do, kind of a caste system in terms of who's on top, in the middle, and who's on the bottom. Everybody has clearly defined roles, and having a government bureaucracy here that makes a society like this work. And of course, this is just an example of how diverse the Native American experience has been when you compare this with other tribes versus other empires. This is obviously the biggest one. The other big one would be down here in Peru with the Inca Empire. So again, diverse experiences. And one thing about this empire that's very interesting, it says here after 1492, Spanish intruders capitalized on high levels of discontent among subject peoples to conquer the Mexica. And it says common pattern, more to come next week, which basically means something else, and we can talk about that in a little while. But really one of the key ideas here that I want to make clear is that when the Europeans came, and here you see a picture of Hernando Cortez, when the Spanish conquistadors came into the New World, they came with very small numbers of men to basically conquer large empires. And if I go back to this slide here, you only have a few hundred men that Cortez is leading into this empire, and he's able to conquer the whole thing. And part of it is due to technology, part of it is due to the Native Americans and their non-resistance to disease, and another part of it too is just the mere fact that Cortez and Pizarro and the conquistadors had horses, which allowed them to traverse large areas of land very quickly, and also gave them a tremendous advantage in battle. You know, there's a great book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, which kind of outlines this, and how I could go on and on, but basically it's technology that allows these conquistadors to control these native empires and defeat them, as well as disease. You know, it's very important to understand that out of all the things that destroyed Native American cultures and made them susceptible to Europeans, it's disease. That's the biggest thing. It's not just overpowering firepower or anything like that, or horses or technology. It's diseases that ravage large amounts of populations. And so here's this map again, as we're going to start looking at other groups. that have significant cultural characteristics that are very important to understanding the diversity in the Native American lands here. Just to give you an idea, this is just a little Venn diagram that shows you kind of a comparison between Aztec culture, Maya culture, and feel free to look at this more on your own, but it just shows you that there's a level of sophistication here. It's not like the Hollywood image of cowboys and Indians, which is so prevalent in our culture. These are highly developed civilizations, and the only difference between them and Native and Europeans is Europeans have thousands of years on them in terms of developing even more, I guess, sophisticated technology. And this is just to show you the Aztec Empire here, and you can see the level of stratification, and everybody has a job. There's different people that do different things. Notice slaves are here. This looks very similar to the Roman Empire, and again showing the diversity of Native American tribes. Not every Native American tribe is going to have a society that looks like this, but still, this is just an important part of that empire. One thing I need to talk about very quickly is the Iroquois Confederacy. And in 1450, there were 5 tribes: the Cayugas, Mohawks, Oneidas, Onondagas, Senecas. 5 tribes formed the Iroquois League to protect themselves against the Algonquin, perhaps a forerunner to the American Confederation later. What this means is basically in this area right here, these tribes, adding to this idea that the Native American experience has been diverse, what they were able to do is to create a confederation where basically all 5 of these tribes sign an agreement to defend each other in case of attack against a more powerful foe, in this case the Algonquin. What they did is they actually wrote out this it's not a constitution, it's a kind of an Articles of Confederation. And one of the things that's interesting about this is that there are many historians that believe that the founding fathers actually probably stole some ideas from these Native American tribes. These Native American tribes, this is a government structure. They even had, each one of these tribes even had representatives that formed sort of a little mini Congress, if you will, to decide disputes and stuff. And it's very interesting. I encourage you to check it out more in the book, but it's definitely something that adds to the idea that these tribes in Native American lands were very advanced and very diverse. I could talk on and on about some things, but let's just talk about the Cherokees, Chickasaws, Creeks, and Seminoles, which are basically located down here. You've got 5 civilized tribes who develop codes of law and judicial systems for, this is not just chief says everything is going to be, and the chief is unquestioned. We're talking about laws that apply equally to everybody, and of course bringing disputes before judges is very, very civilized in terms of what you want to say, in terms of human civilization. I don't use the word civilization lightly here. I mean, these tribes have it together in terms of democratic kind of political and legal systems, which and are, unfortunately, one of the main ideas here is that Native American tribes are unfairly, I think, depicted in the media and depicted in our system of America in so many negative ways. I mean, if you look at this picture, and this is totally contrary to what I've just talked about in the lectures. I mean, we have a diverse Native American experience, but these pictures are stereotypes of Native Americans. I mean, you look at this first Thanksgiving, 1621, which may or may not have looked like this. In fact, it didn't look like this. It was this is a complete fabrication of what actually happened. I don't have time to go into it, but just know that You know, when you have a painting that's created 300 years after when this supposedly happened, there are some things that get lost. But unfortunately, one of the big problems here is just the total inaccurate depiction of the Wampanoag Indians, who were the people that eventually ate with the pilgrims. You can see them kneeling in a subservient posture. They didn't even have feathers like that. That's a Hollywood popular image thing that we have subscribed to as a culture. And so hopefully we, through education, can break down stereotypes. Which brings us to chapter 2, Encountering the New World. So I'll get into that. So, European exploration in the 15th century. There were many, many things that led to European exploration. First of all, a couple of things, and let me explain them all. First of all, you got to understand that trade was dominated from the east, mostly by Italians, through these trade routes that I'm outlining with my cursor. And what Spain and Portugal wanted to do, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, is they wanted to cash in on some of those trade routes and markets, and they wanted to find a different route to get to the east. Because the Italian banks and the Italian monarchies here were basically controlling all of the trade. And so when it says motives for exploration, I think what was driving Spain and Portugal is, well, first of all, the monarchs having an interest in controlling trade, and then the markets that would be opened up from controlling that trade, and then, of course, the fame, if they could find a different passage through all of this that wouldn't be like Italians controlling all of that. Also, new technological advances in the 15th century allowed exploration. A few of them, such as movable type, allowed the creation of more detailed maps that could be used right here in order to create better information about maps, and information can be disseminated better. And also things like the astrolabe and compass, which are things that are right here. The astrolabe uses triangulation with stars in order to figure out where your points are in terms of latitude and longitude and things like that. So, and having a compass as well allows you to find your way north, and so navigation makes it easier. These things, make it easier to navigate. So, in short, there's plenty of technological and scientific advances which make things happen. One of them is new and faster ships, and one of them is the Portuguese caravel, which is a very, very fast, sleek design, which is a lot faster than what the other nations are using at the time. So continuing on with factors that explain European exploration in the 15th century, Portuguese had just destroyed and kicked out the Islamic Moors out of Portugal, and had started to, again, thinking about Italy here, how do we get a trade route? And so the monarch there was renewed interest in exploration, and kind of a renewed interest in then Christianizing people that weren't necessarily Christians. And so that, coupled with exploration, interest in exploration, led them to start exploring around Africa here. And you can see some of the different explorers that started to make these maps. And in doing so, trying to find a better sea route to Asia. Now, in the next lecture, what we'll do is we'll then talk about other factors, and then what happens when Europeans make it to the New World.